Hello, my name is Aviva, and today I'm going to be tier ranking all of the books that I've read over the summer. This is technically a part 2 to a video that I made earlier this year. I tier ranked all of the books that I read in the first 4 months of the year, so January to April. So in this video, I'm basically picking up right where that video left off, and I'm going to be tier ranking the second 4 months of the year. So if you did miss that one and you wanted to check it out, I'll make sure to have a link for it down in the description below. But today I basically have just over 100 books to tier rank. So I am going to be trying my best not to give away too much information about any of these books, so we don't end up sitting here for like 2 hours, but instead I will have a link to my wrap up, like recent reads playlist in the description below, because all of these books have been talked about in all of my recent videos that are in that playlist, like what I thought about them and what they're actually about and everything like that. So if you did want to deep dive into some of these books and my thoughts on them, that is where you can find that information. But today I'm basically going to be trying to do this as quickly as I can because we have so many to go through. So I do have 5 tier ranks. I have loved, enjoyed it a lot. It was a fine time. It wasn't great. And then I didn't even finish it. So that is more or less 1 to 5 stars, but I'm tier ranking them how I feel about them now, not necessarily like what I rated them like when I read them, because, you know, feelings change over time. And like, as you get further from a book, you might not feel the same way about it. So we're going as to how I feel about it now, not how I felt about it in the moment that I read it. So with that said, let's get started. First up, I have First Semester by QB Tyler, which is a steamy, very short novella. And I think that it was a fine time. I feel like in the moment I had enjoyed it a lot, but now it was just like, it was okay. Anyway, after that, we have Crow by Azavalero, and that was a fine time too. It was a mafia romance, but definitely not like a favorite mafia romance of mine. And then after that, we have Faked by Carla Sorensen, which was enjoyed it a lot. It almost honestly could go on loved, but you know what? I'll put it there for now. I honestly might pull it down later when I see what else gets put on loved, because I really did enjoy that book, but I know there were other books in that series that I enjoyed more than that one. So whatever, we'll see. But anyway, 1% of You it was a fine enough time. It was a Guy Fawkes first single parent romance, and it was honestly really good, but I remember getting really bored by it as I got later on into the book. So, you know, I enjoyed it, but not a ton. Anyway, after that is Say You Swear, and that was not great for me. I see why people liked that book, but it just was not my alley. Like, you know, the love triangle thing isn't so much my vibe. And then the thing that happened at the end, I didn't really like I didn't really like that idea in a story. It was the first time I read it, but now I know that I'm not a fan of that thing, and I can't tell you what it is because it's a spoiler. But if you read it, then you know what I'm talking about. And those are more or less the reasons why I'm putting it at it wasn't great, because I see why people liked it if you're into, you know, what the story is actually about, but I personally am not. So that's why it's going there. But anyway, The Bombshell Effect, that is the first book in the Washington Wolves series. And I'm going to say that it wasn't great because I did not really love that book. I was very bored the whole time I read it. Anyway, after that, we have a Crank by, I think this is Adriana Locke, and it was a fine enough time. It was a small town romance, very classic, nothing special, but nothing like really horrible or anything like that. The Secret by Max Monroe was a fine enough time. I feel like in the moment I enjoyed it a lot, but like after the fact, it's not something that I'd want to like revisit. Like it was good for in the moment, but not like it's something that I'd ever reread. So it was a fine enough time. But anyway, Off to the Races is the first book by Elsie Silver. It's like the first book in her Gold Rush Ranch companion series, small town romance, horses, things like that. And I really did love book 1. I also really did love book 2, but I remember book 3 and book 4 not being as great. Honestly, book 3, I remember being like, it was a fine, book 3 was a fine enough time. Book 4, you know what? I did enjoy it a lot. I would put it like at it was a fine enough time, but I feel like, you know, that looks correct. Like, you know, the 2 on top and then the 4th as second and then the 3rd on the 3rd level. Like that's how I enjoy them. So I'm going to keep them like that. But anyway, The Birthday List was very much loved. I really, really did enjoy that book. Probably one of my favorite books by Devney Perry. So definitely would recommend checking that out. And then A Court of Thorns and Roses, this was a reread for me. So that is kind of, you know, symbolizing all 5 books in the series, because I did do a reread of every book that is currently out. So I did only grab the first one, but I loved the entire series. Obviously, it was a reread for me. I think it was the 3rd time that I was rereading it. So definitely absolutely loved that. But anyway, after this is Tattered Stars by Catherine Cowles. And don't ask me how I can read what that book is. I just know what it is based off of like the general cover, but technically that cover is Tattered Stars, even though you cannot see it from this tiny picture. But I remember enjoying it a lot. Honestly, it's close to It Was a Fine Enough Time. I wish that I put something like in between enjoyed it a lot and It Was a Fine Enough Time, because I feel like there's a lot of books that can go like right in between those two, but I forgot to do that, so we're not going to add it now. I'm just going to be nice and say that I did enjoy it a lot. It's a romantic suspense, small town romance sort of thing, and it was pretty solid. Make Me Yours was a fine enough time. Wasn't the best, wasn't the worst. Single dad romance, brother's best friend sort of thing. Not horrible. The Wrong Game was a fine enough time. I remember absolutely loving the first half of the book, but the second half of the book, I got really bored. So it was good, but not great. The Shatter Me series was a fine enough time for me, and that is actually representing all of the books in the series. Like, you know, I read the main 6 books, and I also read all of the novellas. I was just too lazy to like grab them all and put them into different tiers. So overall, the Shatter Me series was a fine enough time for me. I really do wish that I had found that series when I was way younger, because if I found it when I was like, you know, the prime reader for that, like the prime age group to read that series, I probably would have absolutely loved it and then like reread it over the years, because it would have like become a part of me the way that like some other series have become a part of me. But I did read it a little bit too late in life, and I just could not connect to like the YA-ness of it, but I still really did enjoy it for what it was. I just couldn't I couldn't grab onto it enough, you know? So whatever, it was a fine enough time for me, only because I did read it at the wrong time in my life. But I do think that it's a pretty solid series, and I get why it gets its hype. But anyway, after that is Sway by Adriana Locke. And I did enjoy this book a lot. I thought it was really great. It was really fun. Small town political romance. Just, it's a good time. Pretty sure she's also a single mom. So very, very fun. But Long Shot by Kennedy Ryan, this was a very intense read for me, and I did enjoy it a lot. It was very not what I was expecting it to be, but after the fact, I'm like, wow, you know what? That was hard to read, but it was a good time. So yeah, definitely recommend looking up trigger warnings before you check it out, but I did like it. Anyway, after that, Penny Reed, I did not even finish it. This is like the first book in one of her, I think it's a Winston Brothers series, Truth or Beard, and I DNF'd it probably within the first 100 pages. I was not vibing with it at all. But The Marriage Effect by Carl Sorensen is the 3rd book in the Washington Wolves series, and I absolutely loved that book. It's kind of like a guardian parent thing. Like, you know, he's a single parent to his siblings, and he ends up getting into a marriage of convenience sort of thing with this model, and he's a professional football player. So lots of stuff going on, but really, really good. Anyway, Revelry by Candy Steiner was a fine enough time. It was just like a small town romance, girl finding herself after getting divorced, and I was a little bit bored the whole time I was reading it, but it did have some good elements to it. So a fine enough time. But anyway, Swing by Adriana Locke, 2nd book from Sway. Like, you know, we first had Sway, and then Swing is its 2nd book, and it was not great for me. It felt a little bit too similar to the first book, and it was just like a worse version of it, and I was just like really bored the whole time. So I didn't love it. But anyway, after that, we have The Right Player by Candy Steiner, which is a companion book to The Wrong Game. So it's like The Wrong Game and then, you know, The Right Player. That is about 2 best friends. And yeah, I did not absolutely love that book. It was kind of one of those books where, you know, the guy is lying about what he does for a living the entire book, and then like obviously that's going to blow up in his face, and I'm not into that type of storyline, and I didn't know what it was until I picked it up and started reading it. So whatever, didn't absolutely love it. But anyway, Consider Me by Becca Mack, I absolutely loved. Talked about that a lot on my channel in the recent months, and definitely recommend checking it out if you're into like, you know, sports romances / like The Deal by Elle Kennedy. That's kind of like a better version of the off-campus series. So very much recommend checking that out. But anyway, Center Mass by Lonnie Lynn Vale, I did not even finish. That was such a bad book for so many reasons. I'm not even gonna get into it. I just want to forget that I ever read that book. But anyway, after that, A Touch of Darkness was not great for me. I really did not like it for multiple reasons. I had read it via audio, and I probably would have DNF'd it if I wasn't listening to it via audio. Like if I was holding it physically, totally would have DNF'd it. But because it was audio, I just like made it through till the end, but like really didn't love it, never continued with the series. But anyway, Room for You by Beth Ehrman was not great for me. Really didn't like the book for a lot of reasons. I think it was just like too old. Like I don't even want to say anything. Like, you know, I didn't like the book for a lot of reasons. It wasn't great, but yeah. that is that. Anyway, next up is Focused by Carla Sorensen. So I really did love this book. This is the first book in the War Sisters companion series. So first you read The Marriage Effect, and then you get to meet all of these kids as children. And then, you know, later on they get their own series, and then the Focused is like taking place 9 years later. And then Faked is the second book in that series. And then, you know, it's about, but like all the 4 sisters that you had met in The Marriage Effect. So really like the whole family and everything like that. So yeah, I'm just loving all of them. But anyway, Call Me Crazy wasn't great. It was a marriage of convenience book between like 2 people who supposedly hated each other, but they really didn't hate each other. And just the way it was all set up, I didn't like anything about the book. So yeah, definitely wasn't great. Did I even DNF the book? I don't think so, but I really didn't like it that much that I almost feel like I DNF'd it, because I honestly can hardly remember the ending. But yeah, just was not a great book. But anyway, The Wall of Winnipeg and Me was a reread for me, and obviously I loved it because I decided to reread it. A Million Kisses in Your Lifetime, I'm gonna put it at loved, because honestly, in the moment, I really did love it. After the fact, though, I do feel like it's more of like enjoyed it a lot. So you know what? I should be true to what I said at the beginning of the video, and I'm gonna put it at enjoyed it a lot. But it really was a good time. The thing is why I'm putting it at as enjoying it a lot is because I really didn't like the beginning of it, even though I liked the ending of it. So by the end, I was like, oh my God, loved the book. But I honestly remember it being like a wishy-washy in the moment. So, you know, just enjoyed it a lot, because at the end, loved it, beginning, didn't like it. Anyway, Culty, it was a reread for me, so I'm obviously putting it at loved. It's by Mariana Zapata. This is The Way to You by Candy Steiner. So I did not love this book. It's about this guy who is very suicidal, and he ends up going on a road trip with this girl that he had met in a diner. And honestly, I feel like if you couldn't connect to the characters, then you might really like the book. I personally couldn't connect to the characters, and I didn't like some things that happened throughout the story. So I just really didn't personally enjoy the story. But yeah, it might be, it's kind of one of those books that I feel like are just, some people will connect to it, some people won't. And I just was one of the people who didn't connect to it. But anyway, Reckless Refuge by Candy Steiner was a fine enough time. It was just like a regular romantic suspense, small town romance. It just, I don't know, it wasn't anything special to me. I just remember getting bored like later on in the story. So it was a fine time, but you know, not my favorite by Catherine Cowles by far. Wildcat, did I DNF this book? I don't think that I did. I think that it wasn't a great book. This is by Rebecca Genshak, and I remember wishing that I DNF'd it. Literally, like at the beginning of the book, I knew that this was something that I should DNF, and for some reason, I made it till the end, and I do regret that. Wish it could be on my DNF, tier, but unfortunately, I did read the whole thing. Anyway, next up is Sadie by Courtney Summers, and I did enjoy this book a lot. It was a thriller, a YA thriller, and it's not something that I read often, but I decided to like give it a shot, and I honestly, I liked it a lot, and I'm still, anytime I think about that ending, I'm just like, what the hell happened? So yeah, very interesting story, not like anything that I've really read before. Anyway, after that, we have Like You Love Me by Adriana Locke, and this was not great for me. It was a marriage of convenience between 2 people who were childhood best friends, turned to strangers, turned to, they meet again later on in life. And I don't know, I didn't like the whole setup of the story. I wasn't really feeling the romance. It was a marriage of convenience, but that was like, it wasn't even great. So I personally was not a fan. Anyway, Hands Down by Mariana Zapata was a fine enough time for me, because I enjoyed it a lot in the moment that I was reading it, but by the time I got to the end of it, it really like went downhill for me, because I just wasn't feeling the romance. Like I thought that those characters should have been like platonic best friends instead of like, romantic lovers, and the ending really kind of like ruined it for me. So when I look at the cover, I now feel like it was a fine enough time. So yeah, that's why it's going there. But anyway, The Gilded Wolves, I ended up DNFing. Way too much world building at the beginning of the book that I just got so freaking lost. I'm like, I can't do this right now. Like my brain hurts, and I'm only like 70 pages in. So I gave up on that pretty early on. Next up, we have Redeemed by Lauren Asher, and I'm putting at It Was a Fine Enough Time. It's the last book in the Dirty Air companion series, and I just didn't love it. Like I know that it's a lot of people's like favorite book from the series, but honestly, after I read Throttled, which was the first book, all of the books ended up going downhill for me. So yeah, I just wasn't like a huge fan, but like whatever, it is what it is. Anyway, after that, The Mixtape by Brittany C. Cherry. So this was, it wasn't great. I remember in the moment it being like a fine enough time. Like I was enjoying it here, I was enjoying it there, like it kind of went up and down, and then I kind of was just like, I was done with it by the time I was like 50% in. So I really didn't love the book. So yeah, definitely it wasn't great. But anyway, after that we have Switch, which is the 3rd book in, the Swing. What was it? It was Sway, and then Swing, and then Switch. And this one wasn't great. I honestly cannot really even remember much about the book, and therefore it has to go on It Wasn't Great, because it was very, you know, unmemorable for me. But anyway, after that, the Summer Games, I didn't even finish. Really wasn't vibing with the storyline, so gave up on it about halfway through. Serpent and Dove, I'm pretty sure I DNF'd as well. I don't remember finishing that book, so yeah, I'm gonna put it at didn't even finish, but I could be wrong about that. I might have finished it, but I don't even remember finishing it, so I probably DNF'd it. But anyway, after that, Keeping 13, I absolutely loved, and then, I mean, that's Binding 13. It's the first book in the duet I absolutely loved, and then the second book in the duet I enjoyed a lot. So yeah, that is that. Definitely recommend checking out those two books. I've talked about them a lot on my channel before because I'm a big fan. But anyway, after that, I have Under Lock, which was a reread for me, and I obviously absolutely loved it. It's by Mariana Zapata. But anyway, next up we have Top Secret, which was a fine enough time. This is a male-male romance between these two frat brothers in college, and I liked a lot of it, but I also didn't like a lot of it. So yeah, it was a fine enough time because kind of equaled out in the middle for me. But anyway, after that, Rhythm, Chord, and Malakin is the only Mariana Zapata book that I have ever DNF'd. So yeah, that's that. And then Irresistible. Is this the first book in the, Irresistible is the first book in the Cloverleaf Farms companion series. And I personally remember not really liking it. There was just a lot about it that I wasn't really connecting to. It's like a nanny romance with a single dad. And I don't know, there was a lot about it. I wasn't loving it. So yeah, was not great. What is this? It's something champagne. Blame It on the Champagne by Fiona Nicole. I had DNF'd that book about like 75 pages in. Really wasn't enjoying it, so I gave up on it pretty early. But anyway, after that, we have, what is this? The Outpost by Devney Perry was not great for me. I honestly was pretty bored the entire time I read that book. Wouldn't have minded if I DNF'd it, but unfortunately, I did make it till the end. Anyway, after that, we have Lilac by B.B. Reed, which was a fine enough time. It was the first ever reverse harem romance that I've ever read, and it was what it was. I made a whole reading vlog about it. I'm not gonna get into it, but yeah, that was that. Anyway, Funny Feelings by Tasha Dewitt, I think that's the author's name, was not great for me. I was very bored by the book. I didn't really find it very funny or anything like that, and I just was very underwhelmed because I know that a lot of people were enjoying the book, so I went into it with, I guess, like mediocre expectations, and then I was even disappointed by that. So definitely did not enjoy that book. Never Enough by Kelly Elliott was not great for me. Didn't really like it, and yeah, that's that. The Crush by Carla Sorensen was not great for me either. And then The Bridge Kingdom was not great for me either. I had tried making a reading vlog for this book, and then I ended up giving up on it pretty early. Like, I wanted to read the duet, and then I really didn't love book 2, that I had no interest in like going and reading. I didn't really love book 1, so I had no interest in going to read a book 2. So that's technically a DNF for this series, but I did finish book 1, and it was like, you know what? Honestly, maybe it was a fine enough time. Nah, when I look at it, I feel like it just was not great for me, but whatever. It is what it is. Anyway, next up, Drive. I really did love the book. That's by Kate Stewart. Faking with Benefits, I did enjoy it a lot. It is a reverse harem. It's the second reverse harem that I ever read, but I liked it a lot more than Lilac, so I did enjoy it more, so I'm putting it on 1 tier higher. Anyway, Here With Me by Samantha Young, I did enjoy a lot. Did I enjoy it a lot? It was a fine enough time. I feel like it's like right in between these two. Should I be? No, you know what? It was a fine enough time. It was good, but like, you know, after the fact, I'm just like, whatever. It's nothing special, nothing that I ever think about. So it was a fine enough time. Baking Me Crazy by Carla Sorensen was a fine enough time. I enjoyed it in the moment, but you know, if I didn't already own the book, I wouldn't have necessarily been like, oh yeah, let's go out and buy the book so that I could read it. Like, it was good in the moment, but that was that. Anyway, Lingus was not great. It's by Mariana Zapata. The Best Thing was not great by Mariana Zapata. City of Bones. So this is the first book in the Mortal Instruments series. It was a reread for me, and that is symbolizing the entire Mortal Instruments series, all 6 books. I did a reread of the whole thing. Absolutely loved it. And then after that, I also did a reread of the entire Dark Artifices series, which I absolutely loved. So that is symbolizing all 3 books in the series as well. And then I also reread Tales from the Shadowhunter Academy, as well as the Bane Chronicles, as well as The Ghost from the Shadow Market. And I absolutely loved all of those rereads. And then Red Schools of Magic, I did reread, but I didn't love it as much as the rest of my rereads, as well as the Lost Book of the White. So yeah, that is why I'm putting those there. But anyway, after that, we have On the Rocks by Candy Steiner, which I did enjoy a lot. It's the first book in the Brecker Brothers companion series. And then after that, we read Neat. So this was Logan's book, and I enjoyed that one a lot, but not as much as On the Rocks. And then you know what? Manhattan is the third book, and it was a fine enough time for me. And then Old Fashioned was not great for me. So that is how I feel about the Brecker Brothers companion series. But anyway, after that, we have Protecting You by Kenzie. So this is the first book in the Bailey Brothers companion series, and I enjoyed book one a lot. It's kind of like a prequel book, a little novella, but it was still a good time. I really, really loved, the second book. That's the conclusion to the couple from the first book. So I really did like Fighting for Us. But then, what is this? Unraveling Him was a fine time for me. It was kind of like instant attraction, and I wasn't like super into the romance, but it was a fine enough time to read. And then Rushing In, which is the fourth book in the Bailey Brothers companion series, was not great for me. I just like wasn't really into it, and like all the books were going downhill for me, so I just kept getting like more and more disappointed, and I wasn't really into that book by the time I got to it. So that is that. But anyway, after that, we have Wrecked Palace, which I did enjoy a lot. It is a book that is part of the Reckless Refuge companion series, and I did like this one a lot more than this one. So definitely makes sense to put them on those tiers. And then anyway, Getting Real, did I DNF this book? I don't think I did, but I wish that I did. So yeah, it was not a great book for me. Fair Catch by Candy Steiner was not great for me. You know what? In the moment, I had put it in a fine enough time. Like I would have put it in a fine enough time, but now that I'm further away from the book, I really did not enjoy it. So that's that. I didn't even finish The Hookup by what's the author's name? By Kristen Callahan. I did not finish The Hookup by Kristen Callahan. I also didn't finish Praise by Sarah Kate. I just like wasn't really into it. I think I got like 75 pages in before I DNF'd it. And then Flawless was a fine enough time for me. There was a lot of parts of that book that I enjoyed, but there was also a lot of the book that I wasn't really into. So it just like, it was mediocre for me. But anyway, Down Too Deep, I did enjoy a lot. It's about two single parents, really good story. I ended up DNFing Shadow Falls. This was a reread for me. This is Shadow Falls by CC Hunter, and I had read it when I was like way younger, tried rereading it, and I just could not get into it this time around. So I DNF'd my reread, but I really did enjoy House in the Cerulean Sea, so I'm gonna put it there. And then I also did read Under the Whispering Door, which is also by like TJ Klune, the same author as House in the Cerulean Sea. And it was not great for me. So yeah, I skipped two books there, but I wanted to do those back to back. But anyway, The Silent Waters by Brittany C. Cherry was a fine enough time for me. I enjoyed the majority of the book, but the ending kind of went downhill. And I feel like we ended off on it was a fine time. So yeah. But anyway, after that, Make Me Yours was not great. This is by Laura, I forgot the author's name, honestly, and I can't see it here. But either way, didn't love the book, so it does not matter. But anyway, after that, we have The American Roommate Experience, which was not great. I did not DNF it, but if I did DNF it, I wouldn't have been upset about that because I didn't love the book at all, and I wouldn't have been missing out on anything. So yeah, I don't blame anybody who DNFs the book, but I didn't, unfortunately. Anyway, after that, we have A Curse So Dark and Lonely, which was a fine enough time for me. I did not end up continuing on with the series though, because it wasn't a fine enough time. It was just a fine enough time. You get what? Did you see what I said? Whatever. Anyway, after that, I also did a reread of Harry Potter. So I'm honestly like in the middle of my reread of Harry Potter, but I'm enjoying it a lot. Like, I haven't read the series since I was much younger. I probably read it back when I was like 12 years old, and I'm deciding to like slowly reread them. So I'm pretty sure I'm up to book 3 right now, but that is just symbolizing books 1 and 2, which I enjoyed a lot. So that is that. But anyway, after that, we have Shattered Sea by Catherine Cowles, which I enjoyed it a lot. I feel like, what is it even about? I honestly read it like last week, and now I'm already forgetting what it was about, but I remember in the moment of reading it, I did enjoy it. So a little bit forgettable because right now I cannot remember it, but I did like it when I read it. So enjoying it a lot. But anyway, after that, we have Blindside, which I did enjoy a lot as well. That is the second book from like, you know, Fair Catch. So Fair Catch, Blindside, very big gap over there, but Blindside was so much better. So I definitely hear what people were saying where it's like, oh yeah, you know, Blindside was like 1,000 times better. Definitely agree with that. But anyway, after that, The Shadow Between Us was a fine enough time for me. I feel like it could have been a lot better, but also it was not horrible. So yeah, that is that. And then we just have a few more. So I did end up DNFing Beautiful Graves by LJ Shen. I had gotten an arc of this. This book isn't even actually out yet. It's coming out on October 4th, but I got halfway through and it was just, for so many reasons, I was not enjoying it. If you wanted to see my review for it, you could check my Goodreads because I went into a very spoilery detail about what was not working for me for that book. So yeah, I did DNF it at page 200. And then I did also do a reread of The Kiss Quotient by Helen Hong, which I did absolutely love. So we're putting it all the way up there. And then lastly, I did a reread of The Spanish Love Deception, which you know what? I did enjoy it a lot. I had loved it the first time that I read it, but this time I did notice a lot more of the annoying stuff in the writing and like, you know, things along those lines. So didn't enjoy it as much, but I honestly still did enjoy it. So anyway, that is all of the books that I wanted to go through. So yeah, that is a lot of books, and that is about it. So yeah, I think we're done here. Thank you so much for, you know, coming along with me while I tier ranked all of the books that I read over the summer. I hope that you, you know, maybe got some good recommendations from this list and maybe steered you clear from some books that you were contemplating reading. But either way, with that said, I'm going to let you go. So thank you so much for watching again. I appreciate it. Give this video a like if you enjoyed it. Also subscribe to my channel if you are not currently subscribed. And until next time, enjoy reading.